Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one! Another one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Galloway finds Rob Finnessy, who fires the three in.
He hit it!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Welcome in, everybody. Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Kevin Brockway with us, as always. Day 2 of the extreme heat wave moving through most of the country. I'm down in Kentucky. Kevin's up in Indiana, but it is affecting all of us in a different way. But definitely going to be really hot yet again today. Lots to get into, as always. Jim will be back with us shortly, by the way. He is doing his thing, so we'll see him shortly. But Kevin, how you doing today?
Doing good. They had tornado warnings in Chicago last night.
I did see that yesterday. That's insane.
Yeah, crazy to think that you could have tornadoes in a downtown area like that. But hot one all throughout the region. Be careful, hydrate, do all that good stuff. I'm used to it from my time in Florida, but for those that aren't, you got to be really careful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially in certain areas where there's lots of humidity, it feels even more extreme than it actually is. I saw yesterday whenever I got off work that the temperature was, I think, 96, but the feels like was over 110, which sometimes I don't think you actually think it feels like 110. I think there's a point where you don't realize that it's actually as hot as it says it is, but who knows? It's still ridiculously hot for early June, considering we didn't really have a spring season, and that seems to be the trend nowadays. But we go from having kind of an extended winter period to having a couple of weeks of good spring-like weather, and then all of a sudden here comes these 90-degree days that nobody really looks forward to.
Yeah, and it's it'll probably be this way until September, and then we'll get back to the cooler weather. So find a pool, find a lake, do something, do some swimming,
absolutely,
and enjoy it.
Well, plenty of things to talk about. Kevin, before the show, we were talking about that you have a piece coming out about over the weekend, the Indiana Kentucky High School All-Stars.
Yes, and CJ Gunn, to me, John, every time I see him, his shooting looks better. So I had a chance to talk to one of his, development coaches, shooting coaches, a little bit about, what they did to fine-tune his form and where he's at as a shooter. I mean, he was 3 for 7 from 3 in that game. He had, 21 points. He had 20 points in the game in Kentucky and Owensboro, so he got the series MVP. One of those threes was about a 21 or 22 footer from the top of the key. And he kind of said after the game, hey, look, I knew it was going in the moment I put it up. And, when we watched him last year as in Indiana Junior All-Star, I think he was 2 for 11. He just didn't have that confidence. That's confidence in the shot that he is now. So a lot of hard work has gone into it. That's what the story is going to discuss and develop. And, if he can show that perimeter ability this summer into the fall, he might find a spot in the rotation, particularly when you consider the wing spots, the 2 and the 3 at Indiana are up for grabs. And it's really anyone's, game, if someone can emerge and solidify, we've obviously talked about Tamar Bates and Miller Kopp, certainly Trey Galloway as guys that will compete. Jalen Hood-Schifino, of course, the incoming freshman, if you want to go 2 point guards. But DJ is a guy that could, work his way into the mix if he, shows something this summer and into the fall.
Yeah, obviously there's going to be some growing pains, as with almost every freshman in college basketball. But I guess the biggest question is, how quickly is he going to be able to transition from the high school to the college game? I think one of the prime examples of that is the way that Tamar Bates, early on in the season, we saw a lot of good flashes of what Tamar Bates could be. But once we got into Big Ten play, it seemed like it took a lot more for him to figure out how to get the game to slow down. And I think we saw it more towards the end of the year, back to where he was at the beginning of the season. But it will be interesting to see if CJ Gunn will have a similar path, or if he'll be able to adjust a little easier than Tamar Bates or some of the others.
Yeah, and I think you see that with most freshmen in terms of the fact that you get into conference play, right, and it's an adjustment in competition level. Let's not forget the difference between this season and last season was the fact that Tamar Bates, certainly Indiana had a very soft non-conference schedule last season. It's not going to be the case this season. You've got Arizona, you've got Kentucky, you've got the ACC Big Ten opponent.
Not Kentucky,
you have Kansas, rather, excuse me, and you have the Big East opponent in the Gavitt game. So you're going to have some tough non-conference games that you're going to have a chance to develop and grow and get better. But some interesting things about CC, he measured it at 6'6", which kind of surprised me. I think he was 6'4", 6'5" in high school, so it looks like he's growing. So that size, I think, will serve him well. And he can leap out of the gym, too. He's a very good athlete. Not quite a Geronimo athlete, but in that vein a little bit. So I think those are two things that will help him with the transition. I think he's certainly athletic enough to adjust to the major conference level. And I think it's just going to be a matter of his skills and his shooting. And I've always liked his defense, too. I think he's a guy that can, go out and guard guys. I think he'll do well there, switch multiple positions, wingspan. I think that's what he was originally recruited for at Indiana. And the offense, I think, is coming and developing.
Yeah.
We'll see how it transpires, and it's going to be interesting to watch. But a lot of positive developments in terms of his growth. And he ended up as the series MVP, averaging 20.5 in the two games. So he joins a list of some. Yep. Certainly some big names in that Indiana-Kentucky All-Star series going all the way back to, George McGinnis when he had that monster game in 1969.
And now, not taking away from anything CJ Gunn did in the series, but it did help that there was, 2 or 3 guys that sat out from the Indiana-Kentucky High School All-Star series for Indiana.
Yes, of course. And Braden Smith, Indiana Mr. Basketball, being one of them, who's headed to Purdue. He's got some leg issues. And then, of course, Jalen Washington, the big kid from Gary who's going to North Carolina, and another kid going to Seton Hall. His name escapes me. I'll look at the roster here. And in those cases, their coaches would not let them play in the All-Star. He's going to Seton Hall. And that's kind of interesting because I remember last year in the game in Southport, Trey Kaufman-Renn broke his finger or hurt his finger in that game. And it slowed his summer development to the point where, Purdue decided to redshirt him. So that's always interesting, the injury risk when you're playing in a game like that. Of course, it can happen to anyone at any time, but I think those coaches probably didn't want their kids, this close to coming to campus to take that injury risk. So credit to Mike Woodson for letting CJ play, and he enjoyed it, and he certainly, put on a pretty good show for the Indiana seniors. And it's amazing. You look up and down those rosters, Sean, and the number of D1 kids that are going from Indiana to Kentucky. It's I don't know what it says about the Kentucky high school basketball, or if the best players from Kentucky aren't really playing. I don't know. And I've had this debate with Jim too, and about which state really cares about it more. But Indiana has dominated the series 24-26, and it seems like the difference is because of the talent disparities on the rosters. Yeah. Are pretty stark.
Well, we talked a second ago about players sitting out and which teams care about them more and yada, yada, yada. And does Indiana really need to play in this series? But yesterday I likened it to college players opting out of bowl games because they don't want to get injured. Do you think that, I don't know how far into the future, but do you think there's a point where this series becomes dormant because you have enough players who aren't wanting to risk getting injured going into their freshman season of college?
Yeah, and to the high school, I think that the All-Star effort in general, it's been pretty hard. I think the last 2 decades with regards to that. I think too. Well, what's interesting is at the junior level, right? Xavier Booker, who I did a story on over the weekend, and who has a visit scheduled for Indiana. He played against the seniors. But he had taken a red-eye flight the night before because he was at a big event in Vegas. So I think what you're seeing at the junior level with the All-Stars is, the really, really elite guys are traveling all over the country. Xavier came, and he didn't play great because he was just tired. but and he had a few a few rebounds, one nice dunk along the baseline, but for the most part, it was kind of a token appearance. But you could see that he was the most physically dominant player on the floor. He just didn't play that way. And I think at the junior level with the junior all-stars, I think that's the big issue too, is that, you have so many of these people traveling around to these elite events, and you run into the fact of, like, are you going to overextend yourself? Xavier Booker could have easily gotten hurt in that game because of the fact that he had played all week. He's on a red-eye flight, so forth. And, you're a big guy and your body's taking, more of a pounding when you're 6'9" as opposed to when you're 6'2" or 6'3". So those are all factors that come into play. So I'd be worried about the junior all-stars too, just because they're playing a lot more of these events throughout the country, these recruiting events where their bread is truly buttered.
Yeah, especially because, and Jim's mentioned this millions of times over the years, I'm sure, but the series between Indiana and Kentucky is not really that competitive. Now, next season, I think Kentucky has a lot more Division I talent coming out of the state. So you may see a more competitive all-star game next year, but we won't know what's going to happen in that, obviously, until a year from now. But one thing, too, they're not going to have Caleb Glenn on that all-star team because he's moving from Male High School to La Lume here in Indiana, which when you play for those prep schools, you don't get to participate in any of that or have the chance to become an Indiana all-star or any of that kind of stuff, right? You can't be like Mr. Basketball.
The IHSAA, they have, rules, and I guess there are certain private schools, cathedrals in the association. But if you're not an IHSAA member, which La Lume is, you can't play. Florida had that school that wasn't a part of the FSSAA Montverde, and what those schools do instead is they play in this national prep tournament in Fort Myers. And I was there last year to see Jalen Hood-Schifino, and it's really crazy because the talent on the floor is unbelievable. But these are pretty much ringer schools that have, broken away from their high school associations and have, decided to do their own thing.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the Andy Moore Honda hotline before we get to our first break. Forrest checks in, says 105 to 110 heat index today. Going to be a little warm. Absolutely. Ross.
Well, Forrest should know that being in Forrest is from Bainbridge, Georgia. He knows a little bit about heat. So.
Yeah. 96% humidity down where Ross is from in Somerset.
Oh,
that's not promising for the rest of the day. He also mentions, and I saw this story come out yesterday evening, but Louisville Cardinal, former, I guess you can call him national champion, even though that championship was taken away, but Montrezl Harrell was he arrested for possession? Is that what I saw? I don't know if you saw this yesterday, Kevin, but I can't remember exactly what the story was.
3, how much weed was it? 3, I don't know. He said 3, number 3 and the dash mark of weed. Does that mean like 30 pounds of weed or 3 pounds of weed, or what does that mean? I'm gonna look.
I'm not sure. I did see that it had to do with that though.
But we would call it. I remember watching him when Louisville played Florida in the Elite Eight game back in 2012, and I was always very impressed with his game. I mean, he's just
he came up around the same time as Victor Oladipo.
Yeah,
for Indiana, obviously, and I feel like they both had very similar styles of, because one of them was a forward and Oladipo was more of a guard. But they're both extremely athletic, probably two of the most athletic players in college basketball at the time.
Yeah, 3 pounds of weed they found. So I just looked at this, right? 3 pounds. So that's a felony, apparently. Trafficking. So Montrezl, that's we would call it. Can't be dealing, But what's amazing is that there's so much. The perception of weed has changed so much in the last 2 decades, and you have these dispensary stores now and so forth. And, but you still can't make money on the
comments, and we'll go ahead and get to our first break after that. Wyatt says YouTuber got banned for life from the Warriors games for trespassing. Got through 5 levels of security and shot on the floor for 10 minutes during warm-ups. Okay, so we'll go ahead and tackle this before we go to break, because you're at the NBA Finals, and how in the world does anybody get through 5 levels of security? And that's not even security. That's like just going through the American border from Mexico, it sounds like.
Yeah. That's very strange, but that speaks to to the security or the lack of security at Golden State games, the fact that you could do that. But I was thinking back to the Indianapolis 500 when you could just go on, as a media member, you can go on the track with the cars, and you have VIPs that can do the same stuff. And I said, hey, it would probably be like taking part in warm-ups during the Final Four. Well, here's a guy that did it during the Warriors game.
I don't get I feel like, and I'm not saying this YouTuber should be rewarded. I don't even know who it is. But if you're able to get through that much security and spend 10 minutes on warm-ups, don't ban him for life. Just give him a little. I mean, that's impressive, I think. At the same time,
I think so too. Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, and I'm sure he's. Did he post the video on YouTube? Is that the deal? Is that how he we would call it? Was that his thing or his reward or his intention was to go out there?
Wyatt's got a follow-up. Says that this YouTuber looks eerily similar to Klay Thompson, and he's done it once before. So it makes sense, though. If you look like one of the players who's going to be in the game, I guess you got a better chance of getting away from it or getting away with it.
Yeah. That's we would call it. That's very interesting. But banned for life, man. That's
all right. With that, we're going to go ahead and get to our first break. During the break, if you're on YouTube, you're going to see me trying to get a hold of Jim. We'll see if he can get back with us. And until then, if not, if it's going to be me and Kevin when we come back, I'm going to ask Kevin a little bit about Donovan McCulley when we come back and his transition to wide receiver. So you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by the WOW Network and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. We'll be right back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting Bloomington,
I tell you what, producing a show and hosting a show is not easy. Let's give old Jimmy a call. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Almost video called him. He tends to show up in the middle of this segment when he's late anyway.
Yeah.
His phone's not dead because it's ringing.
Yeah.
Please leave your message.
Well, we can talk about football this segment, and then after that, we'll have to figure it out, I guess.
Yeah, well, we will. That's the thing.
If you're in the comments section, feel free to give us some questions or topics of discussion that you want us to talk about. I'm trying to think. I haven't watched any of the NBA finals, so I'm not really up to date on that. I used to really get into the NBA finals, but it just...
Yeah. I watched it last night, so we can talk a little bit about it.
What was that? I saw you retweet. You were on somebody's podcast yesterday.
Yeah, Chris Dortch, Blue Ribbon. Yeah. We can also talk about. I posted this on Twitter yesterday. And it got a lot of mileage about Indiana's odds for reaching the NCAA championship. Went from 66 to 33 to 1.
Oh yeah, I saw Dustin Dopier say something yesterday about that too.
Yeah. Yeah, when I tweeted that out, it got a lot of likes and retweets and stuff. So people seem to be very interested in that.
All right, here we go.
The homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Feast Market and Cellar. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio. John, the producer, in right now for Jim Coyle. Kevin Brockway with us from CNHI Papers, as always. We were just talking a little bit of basketball earlier, CJ Gunn and the Indiana Kentucky High School All-Star Game, but we've kind of beaten that horse to death. If you add together the conversation we had about it yesterday with Jim. But one thing we also talked about yesterday that I'm interested in is on the football side of things, Donovan McCulley, quarterback, former quarterback, moving to wide receiver for Tom Allen's Hoosiers. We haven't seen, this isn't obviously a very uncommon thing, specifically with smaller teams like Indiana, who tend to not always get the biggest quarterbacks out of recruiting. So it's not necessarily out of left field that this is happening, especially when you have somebody like Connor Bazelak from Missouri coming in, who is poised to be a contender for the starting job in the fall. And then you still have Jack Tuttle, who has that starting experience for Indiana. So it's not, I mean, and I know we've had, or Donovan McCulley's had experience from last season, kind of forced experience dealing with all of the injuries, but his size is not necessarily really something to, I guess, write home about when it comes to some of the other quarterbacks, especially the elite quarterbacks in the Big Ten.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about Donovan is this is overall athletic ability, and the fact that he's 6'5", he's a big target. He's a guy that, I said Don Fisher compared him to James Hardy, who, went on to the NFL and tragically passed away at 31. In terms of Indiana having that kind of big target. I mean, they've had some big targets, certainly at tight end, the Peyton Hendershot. This year, A.J. Barner, I know they're very high on at the tight end position. But to have that wide receiver target, that's 6'5", that could play pretty well in the Big Ten. And he's a fast kid, too. He's a good athlete. I think you'll still see him in some wildcat formations near the goal line. I don't think that'll change. I think they'll run plays for him, and I think you'll see him as a receiver that could be kind of like a hybrid, and you could pitch the ball to as well because he's such a good runner. But it's interesting. What struck me about Donovan was, as a true freshman, he was thrown into a tough situation. He didn't have spring football because he played for Lawrence North. He played basketball. It's what he wanted to do. But what really struck me about his struggles as a quarterback was just his accuracy. I mean, he just 41%. He just did not have the accuracy, particularly on the short and intermediate routes. I mean, he threw a nice deep ball. And if you remember that Maryland game last year, he threw for 260 yards. He had some moments where he threw the ball pretty well. I'm a little surprised he didn't stick with it at quarterback and just was patient. But I think he feels like maybe this is a quicker way to get on the field, and maybe this will be better down the road for my NFL hopes because he's definitely got the athletic ability. And, you've got Connor Bazelak next year. You've got Jack Tuttle. You also have Dexter Williams, who is back from torn ACL, who's another athletic quarterback type, that dual threat type. The kid coming in, Brendan Sorsby, is another dual threat type quarterback. So I think you still got some good depth there. Grant Gremmel, the walk-on from Noblesville, showed a lot, I think, last year too. He'll be in the mix, I think, for playing time if people get injured. So I still think you're deep enough at that quarterback spot where this could work.
Yeah, especially because you have other wide receivers coming in as well. I'd say probably the biggest name out of the transfer portal, Emory Simmons from North Carolina. He was once an Indiana recruit that never came to fruition. He obviously went to the ACC, but coming back to where he was, or one of his original, is he from the state of Indiana? Does he play high school football?
No, he's from North Carolina.
He's from North Carolina.
That's what factored into his decision to flip, was the fact that he wanted to stay close to home. When we talked to him in March he talked about that, about not wanting to go someplace too far from home. But now how that has changed because of the fact that in North Carolina he felt like he wasn't necessarily getting the snaps that he wanted to get, and this would present an opportunity for a little more playing time here in Indiana. So he's going to get a chance to do something. You remember Cam Camper, the kid from the junior college transfer from Texas? They're very high on him. And they're keeping their fingers crossed that DJ Matthews will be back from the torn ACL. Now, you never know, right? You saw what happened with Michael Penix last year.
Exactly. Everybody thought that Michael Penix was going to be back and 100% ready to go, and he was a completely different player last season. And you could blame that on numerous things. The offensive line primarily is what a lot of people had issues with last season. But at the same time, it's hard to think. You could probably count on maybe even one hand, at least for me, someone my age, successful players who have come back from a torn ACL and still been successful.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy to think about with Michael Penix is, when he came back from the first ACL, he was pretty good in 2019. He had a pretty good season, and then it carried over into 2020, where he had the real breakout season. But then, second one is really problematic. And then in Indiana, the kick returner, right, Jay-Sean Harris, who had 3 of them, and came back from 3 of them, which is so. I believe this is the first for DJ Matthews, so maybe you keep your fingers crossed and you hope that he has a Penix-like recovery on the first one and it comes back and he's productive. I know they're high on him, but McCulley presents more insurance, a little more depth at that wide receiver spot where you can have a guy that comes in and plays pretty well. And there's some other transfers that'll be in the mix as well. And I know Jalen Lucas is an incoming freshman who could be a hybrid, who could play some wide receiver and some running back as well, and maybe play in the slot a little bit too. That could be helpful as well.
Another interesting thing on the football end, you have which one of the McCulloughs is it? Is it Dave McCullough, decommitted from Indiana not too long ago, but Dason McCullough, the one a part of this current class, is firmly planting his feet in Bloomington. I'm curious if he's just kind of waiting it out a season to see if it's really going to be worth it. Now that he won't have his younger brother with him, his dad's no longer going to be on the coaching staff, obviously. But he's still the highest rated player in this 2022 recruiting class. So you'd think that the reason for him wanting to stay, not only because of who recruited him, but thinking he can make an immediate impact and raise his own draft stock by being somebody who can get on the field early and often.
Yeah, whereas maybe if you go to Notre Dame, maybe the position battles there are a little different. But that being said, I think Dason was set back a little bit. He had some injury issues in the spring. I know that. But then he came on kind of later in the spring and did some things. I think he projects as kind of maybe at that Husky spot or which is up for grabs. I think he would be maybe he's a little small for the bull position, but I thought he would be suited for that too because he's just a really good pass rusher. He's so athletic. And he's got such a really good wingspan as well. But as an edge rusher, or maybe as a Husky, he'll make that impact. You never know with him, or maybe not, and maybe he'll just say after 1 year, "Hey, look, I'll join my dad at Notre Dame." So we'll see. We'll see how things transpire. But I mean, watching that kid in a high school game, Bloomington South against Martinsville last year, I mean, he was a dominating force in that game.
Well, and that's the thing. He, instead of decommitting and going to Notre Dame now that you have this transfer portal rule where you can do the one-time transfer, why not go ahead and stick with where you're at and see how things might be? Because you still have that option to go away if you don't like the fit there. Now, a lot of people don't like that because it gives people a way to just back out of a situation that may not have been ideal. But at the same time, it is good for the players who may not have been getting what they asked for or signed up what they asked for at the same time.
Yeah, I think that it's player movement is I think it's okay, but I do think too that I kind of like the old way that you sat out a year, and the reason why that rule was in place also there's an academic component to it because when you transfer credits, it's sometimes hard to get all those credits to carry over, and you get caught back up academically. Now you're not having that as much. But I think that it'll be interesting, John, to see how things play out here for Dason McCullough, because he certainly is a tremendous talent, and he's a guy that you would like to keep here in this recruiting class. You know, they already lost to Brian Payne to Notre Dame, which was a blow to that recruiting class as well. Another 4-star that left. So you know, you want, you know, that this is supposed to be the best recruiting class in Indiana history, something that you can build around, you know, 3-4 years down the road, hopefully, if they all stick around. So like to see Dason McCullough be a part of that.
It really feels like, too, that going into this season after the letdown that was, and that's kind of an understatement, too, the letdown that was last year, it really feels like all of the momentum that Tom Allen has put together really comes down to this season, if you're going to be able to maintain it or not. If you lay another egg, and I'm not even sure really what the true expectations are yet for this season, because if you ask anyone, even people here on Indiana Sports Beat, some people will say that they only expect 2 wins again. Some people say 4. Some people say 6. When you haven't seen anything, when you have a brand new offensive coordinator, Walt Bell, and a new defensive coordinator because Charlton Warren left, and you haven't had an open spring practice, you have a brand new quarterback, you have mostly brand new wide receivers. There's so much unknown. It's almost like this is a brand new team entirely coming into the season. So all people have to go off of is what happened back in 2021.
Yeah, and don't forget 2021. I mean, it was an injury-filled season, and sometimes that has, you know, that there's a luck component to it. There's a keeping healthy component to it. I think the injury, you know, a lot of people talk about, you know, obviously the Penix injury was huge, and the fact that even when he did come back, he didn't look the same. But I think the injury that was not talked about enough that really impacted them, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, particularly from October on, was Tywone Mullen going down, because of the fact that, you know, you could not play in the secondary the way you could play in previous years because Tywone Mullen was an island. And I think that really hurt them. It hurt their big playability in the secondary. You know, the fact that they went from having, you know, the most interceptions in the Big Ten in 2020 with, you know, 16 to the fewest with 5. I think a lot of that had to do with Tywone Mullen being out. So you got to keep him healthy. I talked to Tom Allen about that in the spring. He said he expects him to be fully healthy, ready to go. He's your only All-American back from that 2020 team because Micah McFadden left. He's your most talented guy. So he's going to have to be, I think, the guy. And I think that first game against Illinois, you know, Friday night here is so huge because it's a winnable game. But Illinois is, you know, gained some momentum under Brett Bielema. And football is such a momentum sport, right? I think if you win that game, then you can, and then you've got, you know, the 2 non-conference, Idaho and Western Kentucky, you know, then you could be 3-0 going down to Cincinnati, facing a Cincinnati team that, you know, was obviously in the Final Four last year, but lost so much talent from that team.
Mm-hmm.
Ritter and Sauce Gardner, who's with my Jets, very happy about that. Maybe could be the next Revis, fingers crossed, right? Pierce, the wide receivers with the Colts, you know, they had a lot of time. I think, you know, Ford, they had, you know, I was watching the NFL draft, and they must have had like 8 to 10 players from that Cincinnati team taken in the draft. So that's got to take a hit on Cincinnati's talent level. But you got to go down there as well. It's going to be a lot harder, but it'll be a different Cincinnati team that they face this season in late September.
You're back to that Illinois game real quick because we're going to be going to break, and it looks like Jim's going to be joining us starting the next segment. But you mentioned how big that Illinois game is. Illinois is going to be coming off a week 0 matchup against Wyoming to start the season. But
the Cowboys.
So they'll have that first game under their belts. But they're going to be going into an Indiana team who they know absolutely nothing about. They have 0 film to watch except for from last season. But what good is that going to do for you whenever you have a totally different offensive system, a new defensive coordinator, a new quarterback? I mentioned all this earlier, but there's a lot of things playing into Indiana's favor in that opening Friday night game.
Yeah, and, you know, it's always fascinating, right, with the first game. It's like rest versus rust. Like how will that impact, you know, could Illinois be nicked up going to that game? Could they have an injury or two? That hurts them, or will they be playing in more of a rhythm than an Indiana team that'll be playing their first game under a new offensive coordinator, under a new defensive coordinator? And that's the thing in college football. Why I covered Florida for so many years, where they, played these first two guarantee games against Southwest Louisiana or whatever, or New Mexico, and people would say, "Well, why do you do that?" And the response that I often got off the record is, "There's no preseason in college football." So, but the way the Big Ten does it, bam, you're in a conference game right away. They create those marquee matchups early because they play the 9 games. And so what happened last year with Indiana when they went to Iowa, I mean, it was just ugly and they got thumped. And this year you've got Illinois. The difference is you're at home as opposed to on the road. And Illinois is not a top 25 team, whereas certainly Iowa was. So that's going to be a big game. Friday night under the lights. It should be a lot of fun. Labor Day weekend.
Should be. We're going to go ahead and take our next break. Jim Coyle will be back with us here in the next segment. You're listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by our friends at Feast Market and Cellar. We'll be right back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
There he is.
Oh, we can't hear you. We can't hear you.
ET phone home.
You're all going to hear me messing with music because I don't have a bump yet. It's kind of funky.
What about now?
There we go. All right, there we go. All right. My camera's going off. Jim, the first 2 segments we talked. First segment was more about CJ Gunn, and then this last segment was Jonathan McCulley and other football matters. And feel free to take it wherever you want after that, obviously.
Did you see that the WWE has an NIL group? The WWE.
By the way, the reason Kevin doesn't have his headphones is because they weren't working this morning.
What do you mean they're not working?
Well, he plugged them in and we couldn't hear him and we couldn't figure it out. So,
did he go out and come back in?
I think so. I think you did that.
Yeah. That says I sound okay.
He said it fades in and out a little bit, but it's fine.
See if I can do it now. I can hear you guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, I'll wear them then.
Sweet.
All right.
Works like a charm.
All right.
Why would you be worried that anyone has not been named starter yet?
What are you looking at?
Tim's question. It's June.
No, I think what's his face? Mel Tucker didn't name his starter till the opening game.
Yeah, a lot of them don't. They're not going to name a starter for.
No,
man, they're not.
I don't think they'll say it till the week of. That's my guess. Here we go. By the way,
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indy Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, welcome back. It is Tuesday. K-Bro with us. Jim Coyle here along. Thanks to John for getting us started. Something I noticed yesterday, Kevin, the WWE has an NIL branch. The WWE of wrestling. They have a list of athletes that they are paying.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting too is if you remember, because I went to school with The Rock. You know, I went to school with Dwayne Johnson at the University of Miami, who was a football player.
Could you smell what The Rock was cooking?
I could smell what The Rock was cooking back then. He was actually a broadcast journalism major, I think. He was 2 years younger than me. We didn't have any classes together, but I do remember him as a football player. You know, he never quite made it as a football player, but as you know, he did that HBO series where he portrayed himself as this like legendary linebacker from the Dolphins. But he was an average college football player. But the point being was because he had that body and was, you know, a big, strong guy. And his dad was a professional wrestler, you know, Rocky Johnson.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that he, that he ended up, you know, going into the wrestling ranks out of college. And I think that, you know, this could be a recruiting vehicle, right? For the WWE. You sign up a kid to NIL, you have a kid that maybe isn't quite a good enough football player, but you can transition them into professional wrestling.
Well, that's exactly what I guess they're doing. They've got a list and a litany of different athletes. It's different. I mean, volleyball players, girls, guys. It's not. It's a cross section. Basketball names, and from places that I can't believe. It's not. These are not big time schools. I mean, some might be. I can't remember who's all on the list, but there was one. I'm like, who the hell is this? From like Hampton or something. So I don't know how they're going about doing what they're doing. I don't know if it's relatives of the who knows, but I just found it uniquely different that the WWE is involved in NIL.
Yeah, but like I said, I think it makes sense because I think that, you know, they're probably recruiting athletes that they look at and they say, hey, look, you know, these guys could be, and these men and women, you know, because we're seeing in the women's rank now. I was on the treadmill yesterday and watching this women's professional wrestling match. They're going at it pretty hard, you know, with all their, you know, smashing them into tables and so forth and everything like that. It's fascinating stuff. I was of the era of Hulk Hogan back in the day, right? And the Iron Sheik, remember him when he beat Bob Backlund? And, you know, the Iron Sheik is on Twitter, by the way, and everything is F this and F that. He's kind of.
You mean now?
Yeah, he's on Twitter. You can follow him on Twitter, and he's pretty funny because he's just.
He's got to be in his 70s.
Yeah, he's in his 70s. The Iron Sheik, and we would call it. That was the transition from Bob Backlund to Hulk Hogan was the Iron Sheik, if you remember the camel clutch.
Yeah. Oh, I remember it. It's just funny.
Yeah, the Iron.
You guys were talking about football earlier, and as the season's not that far away, but dissolving the divisions, something that they have to do. I don't think that that's something they'll do in time for this season, though, since it's upon us. Do you?
No, it's probably going to be 2023, Jim. But if you look at the, like, for example, if you look at the future schedules, apparently on all the Big Ten boards, they pulled
them back.
Yeah, so that tells me that it's going to come in 2023, and it's good news for Indiana, I think, because you know that behemoth of the Big East division. You don't necessarily play them all the time. If you remember, I asked Tom Allen about it at Huber's back in late May, and he gave the stock answer of wanting to be able to play in all the Big Ten stadiums and so forth. But it's more about creating a schedule that's going to be more manageable down the road for the Hoosiers and for.
Why is the Big Ten stuck on 9 conference games instead of 8? I don't get it. It really puts the teams like Indiana and Maryland and Illinois, Purdue of sorts sometimes. It puts them really strains them on making a bowl game every year, because you take away that 4th or that 9th game and give it back to the teams and allow them to use that for a non-con game. That would give them 4 non-con games, and then you only have to win 2 conference games to be bowl eligible. And that's what the SEC that's the system that they have. The ACC, the Big 12. Who else? Is there one other conference that plays 9 games besides the Big 10?
Pac-12, do they play 9?
I'm thinking the Pac-12 maybe, which doesn't make sense either, but somebody does, I think. But regardless, I don't get it.
Here's why they do it, okay? Most bowl games, right, are a money-losing proposition anyway, right? Especially for smaller schools and so forth, if you're playing in a lesser bowl like the Pinstripe Bowl, so forth. The 9th game leads to what? If you're on the Big Ten network and you're on the more television revenue, which goes into the pot. So it's money. I think it's a money situation. You're creating more program for your networks, and that's why you're doing it. It's probably the same reason why the Big Ten also went to 20 conference games in basketball. That same concept is you're creating more and better programming for your conference network, and that means more ad revenue, better ratings, more money in the pot to share for revenue sharing at the end of the year. That's why they do it.
Well, there you go. Xavier Booker visiting Indiana tomorrow. Yep. A name that has kind of slipped a little bit in the recruiting circles for Indiana. Michigan State thought to be the leader, if you want to call it that, but that's based on conjecture. That stuff changes. The fact that they're getting him in here again, that's very important for Indiana on landing him. We'll see how that goes, but they had a visit yesterday. They had another visit yesterday. So recruiting nonstop, baby.
Yeah, and I had a chance to see him last week up in Mount Vernon, and he was coming on. And I think I talked with John earlier, but he was coming off that kind of red-eye flight from Vegas and was kind of just going through the motions in that game. But we talked to him afterwards, and he said that still getting a lot of calls from Yasir Rosemond and from Brian Walsh and Kenya Hunter, and that Indiana is still trying. Now, the question is Duke, Michigan State, Kansas. I hear Kentucky's starting to get involved too. You've got some heavyweights there that are going to be in on this kid. And does he want to play close to home? And, another thing, very similar to Trace Jackson Davis, it's interesting. The feedback that Xavier Booker got from, Mike Woodson wasn't necessarily what, he wanted to hear, but what he needed to hear in terms of aspects of his game, rebounding harder, playing more consistent. So Mike doesn't sugarcoat things, even in the recruiting process. He just kind of tells them, what they need to hear, how they need to get better. And Xavier Booker said that he respected that. They didn't bother him or insult him or anything of that nature. And that shows a little bit of a mature mindset, because some 16 and 17-year-olds, don't take constructive criticism as well as others do.
Yeah, he was kind of reminiscent of last year of CJ Gunn. And it's the same thing that Mike Woodson told him. CJ was not scoring a lot, and he said, dude, you can't be averaging 10 points a game. You've got to start scoring. And from that moment, he was bored, and he took that seriously. And look what he did last season. I mean, he had an incredible season. To me, he was Mr. Fourth Quarter and scored a lot. Look, he was the MVP of the All-Star game, scoring 41 points over 2 nights. So Mike Woodson tells them what they need to hear because he's been there. And I think that they appreciate that. To be honest with you, I would say CJ Gunn appreciated it. Now, although he's already committed to Indiana at the time, I believe. But I think Xavier Booker will appreciate that. I think he'll appreciate the fact that he may be able to come and get basic tutelage for the next level. And while Indiana's recruitment of him doesn't seem to be in as strong a position as people would like right now, I think that that'll probably change.
Yeah, and I think what will be interesting too will be the number situation as well, because Trace and Race will probably be gone next season, but you'll still have Geronimo there. You'll still have Malik Renault, who's top 5 recruit as a sophomore, probably there. So you'll have 2 guys in those 2 forward spots probably next year in line to start. And then you have Logan Duncombe in the mix too. If you're Xavier Booker and you're a top 5 guy, do you face that competition, or do you go to a place where you're going to step in and play right away?
Yeah, and then Indiana's recruiting period has just gone big time. Now it's gone national. During the Archie Miller era, they could not land a kid outside of the state of Indiana. They wouldn't come here. And now it's kind of reversed a little bit.
A big time kid, they got Jordan Geronimo, right, from Newark.
Well, Jordan Geronimo thought he was going to be playing Division III basketball, so he accepted the scholarship offer immediately, and they had time to go home and think about it. So, so I don't really count that one, but not the big time ones. Yeah. But anyway, and that's changed. And now they've got to get back to getting that mixture. And it's not about not wanting Indiana kids. It's about timing. It's about the slots available as well. And they've got to recruit for the future. So, and they just got had in there. This is Mike Whitson's truly his first full recruiting class. Last year, but this year's, they put all this effort in. They've had all the time. And I think they've done a hell of a job. They go out and they find the right guys. And they've done a great job recruiting them.
Yeah, and you have 2 top 30 kids in Hood Shafino and Malik Renault, which is really impressive. And
then you've got their former teammates looking at Indiana as well, in KJ Evans and Derek Queen.
Yeah, so you're creating a pipeline there at Montverde, which is important because you've got so much talent down there. The high school prep national champions. What would be really cool would be to match those teams against like the state champions from each state high school association and have a big tournament in the year, right?
I've long thought about that. Absolutely. That would be, I would love to see that.
Could you imagine seeing Cathedral play Montverde? Well, who do you think would win?
Oh, that's not fair.
Cathedral's got Xavier Booker, and
but Montverde is not a typical, still not a typical high school, man. They're like a junior college. It's a JUCO setup. I mean, dude, I went down there this year, and in the house is your boy
Francisco Lindor. Yeah,
Francisco Lindor was there. Who else did I say was there? The dude from Duke. Oh my gosh. Senior moment. I can see all these people anyway, it's a big time deal. You got banners, these NBA guys. No, that's not your typical high school. Now, I would like to see states play each other.
Yeah.
Indiana, Illinois, Kentucky. Well, that's not really going to be fair, but I'd rather see Indiana. I'd rather see Kentucky's state champion play Indiana than their all-star team.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty cool too, because I was talking about this with John earlier, but you're looking down the Indiana All-Star senior roster compared to the Kentucky this year, and the number of players going to Division I schools. It was just,
Kevin, it's like that every year.
Talent disparity,
It's like that every year, Kevin. This is when people, and especially you're a perfect example. You're not from here originally, so, and while you've done a great job, you understand there. But high school basketball here is truly, it goes to the grassroots. It goes, and it's a true thing. It's not some made up thing. And I think a state like Kentucky thinks that they're a big basketball state because Kentucky does well. Well, that doesn't mean jack to me, because you're fans, because you're fans of a winning program. Who cares?
Yeah.
That's not, this is grassroots, man. And it starts at the bottom, the talent look at the NBA, look in colleges, it's amazing the amount of talent that comes out of Indiana. So
Kentucky, you know, and for all those years that I covered Kentucky, I covered Florida, and they faced Kentucky, and you look down Kentucky's rosters, they were always a national recruiting program. They didn't recruit kids from state, like they didn't really have. There was one kid, Patrick Sparks, I remember, right, 10 or 15 years ago, and he was like the Kentucky boy that everyone liked. But for the most part, I mean, Chris Lofton went to Tennessee. He was a pretty talented kid from Lexington, right, and he was a very good 3-point shooter. But for the most part, it was all, you know, Rajon Rondo from Louisville, right? I guess could be an exception also. But for the most part, it was, you know, you talked about kids. There were kids from, you know, they were recruiting kids from New York and California and all over the country. Georgia.
Hey, make sure you've signed up for the WOW Club. If you haven't, you really need to. It start earning dining dollars today. The WOW Club, a part of the MyWow network of Southern Stone, Courtroom, Sports Room Grill, Feast Market and Cellar, Cabello, BB's Marketplace, Metalworks Brewery, so much more, but it's free. Sign up. Do us a favor. It makes us look good. Sign up, cost you nothing. They don't do anything. It's you only use it when you use it. But we're going to get you going on some stuff with BBs and stuff as the summer gets rolling, baby. Get those grills going. Kevin likes a big griller, don't you? You like a big grilled steak, doesn't you?
Oh yeah, steak, burgers. You know, it is grilling season, right, Jim? We'll have to.
It is grilling season. We're gonna have some fun shows at like BB's and do some grilling stuff. That would be fun. We'll have to do that. But make sure you go to your Apple App Store or Google Play Store, sign up for the WOW Club, start earning WOW benefits today. And if you're in the market for a home in the Indianapolis area, you need our friends from Remax Realty, Cheryl Sizemore, and her 2 decades of experience. It could be the difference between getting the home you want or not. Reach out to her, Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com. Back with more right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Andy Moore Honda.
I heard sort of what you just said, but you're kind of far away. Interesting fact, Ross has. Notre Dame, the only school to make a New Year's 6 College World Series and March Madness. See, I feel like that'd be better if it was like a Final Four.
Yeah.
Has Notre Dame ever been to the Final Four in men's basketball?
I don't know. Under Digger Phelps, did they ever make it?
Great question, but I'm going to say the answer is a big fat no.
Let's see if I can find the answer real quick.
Digger was a lot of talk, and he did some stuff, but no. He went to as many Final Fours as Gene Cady did. How about that?
All right, let's see. Notre Dame has one Final Four. Can you guess what year it was in?
They do?
Yeah.
In basketball?
Like the 1940s or something?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 67.
1978.
Digger Phelps took them? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
See who they lost to.
Probably.
They lost to
Kentucky or Duke. They lost to Kentucky or Duke.
They lost to Duke by 4.
And then Duke lost to Kentucky that year.
And then Notre Dame played Arkansas in the 3rd place game. Apparently that used to be a thing.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Do you know that look how many years in a row that a team from either Indiana or Kentucky made the Final Four? starting in about 1972 or so.
I'll have to go through and look through this list.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
All right, here we go.
Realty at Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com or 317-298-0961. Cheryl Sizemore from Remax Advanced Realty. Let Cheryl Sizemore get you in the home you want today. Cheryl at IndyHomePros.com.
This segment is brought to you by Courtroom Sports Grill in Bedford. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey! Welcome back. It is Tuesday. That's as far as I'm going to go. K-Bro's in the house. Kevin Brockway, Jim Coyle.
Getting a little nervous because the Braves have won 12 in a row. They've cut our 10.5 game lead in the East to 5 games. You know, are the Braves ever going to lose again? That's what I'm wondering.
You know, it's funny you mentioned the Braves because baseball is exactly where I was going to turn. 12 in a row, man. That's some serious business there.
Yeah, and the Mets finish off their West Coast trip 5-5. They've got the Brew Crew tonight, the Brewers. So we'll see how that turns out and if they can keep the lead into the All-Star break.
The Reds are not the worst team in baseball. Did you know that?
No, you know, they're starting to play better after that, 3-22 start. They're over 500 since then, right?
They're still the worst team in the National League by 4 thousandths of a percentage point.
And they're getting Jonathan India back, I saw, yeah.
The Nationals and the Reds are kind of going back and forth.
Yeah, the Nationals, other than Juan Soto, are terrible, and they have terrible pitching. Yeah.
The Cubs aren't any better.
Yep.
There's only a game and a half difference between the Reds and the Cubs.
It's kind of, you know what they call the NL Central, right?
They call, I don't know, but it's they've got 3 of the worst teams in all of Major League Baseball.
The Comedy Central, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Reds,
it's
Cubs and Pirates, yeah.
The 3 of the worst teams in all of baseball in one division. But the Central Division is always weak. Small market teams.
Yeah.
Now on the other side of the ledger, the Athletics and the Royals,
right?
Yeah, the Athletics, the Athletics and the Royals. Tigers are close to being in that group, but I'm gonna leave them out since they're above 400 winning percentage. The rest of those 5 that I gave you are below that. But oh man, the Reds. They're got it.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see what they come up with. How are your see, where's division? How are the Mets? They still have a 5-game lead. The Braves have won 12 straight and they still trail by 5 games. Holy cow. Holy cow.
That's because they had a 10.5 game lead on the Braves a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
They've shaved 5 off that. So just got to hope that the Braves have hit a pretty soft spot in their schedule, though. And the Mets went to the West Coast. And, I mean, they held around there. They were 5-5. And but it's going to be
also have the best.
race,
They also have the best record second best record in all of baseball and the best record in the National League. Ironically, the 2 best records in all of baseball are the Yankees in the American League at 44-16 and the Mets at 40. Never thought I'd be saying that.
Yeah.
How about the Cardinals? Got a lot of the Cardinals. The Cardinals have moved up to first place, baby.
Yeah, the Brewers are struggling a little bit. So the Mets are getting the Brewers at the right time. But the Cardinals, I'm sure Jennifer Land is happy. And the Redbirds are, they're always going to be in the mix every year. It's a great baseball town. And they're a first-class organization, always do it the right way.
Absolutely, man. They're one of the best organizations in all of sports. You can catch them right.
Usual, right? And
yeah, you can catch them right on the ref 97.7 ESPN in Evansville, baby. The Cardinals.
Whitey Herzog, and you remember back in the day,
dude. Their AAA farm team was in Louisville, so being in Southern Indiana, having that close by was kind of cool.
Vince
because
Coleman, Willie McGee, and
all those guys came through Louisville.
Tommy Herr, yeah.
They did an incredible job of developing players back then.
Yeah,
all those guys.
Developing players for the turf too, with speed and defense, and then they traded for Ozzie Smith, who was great shortstop, and the turf monster ate Vince Coleman, though. Remember in the postseason that one year.
They did. Let's see what's coming up this weekend. Oh, I hit the wrong one. Talked about the Indiana Basketball Coaches Association Top 100 Showcase. That is happening this weekend at Brownsburg High School. So there'll be a lot more going on there. I don't know who all will be attending that, to be honest with you, but plenty. I mean, that's the top 100 of Indiana. So, lots of games going on. Then you have the Charlie Hughes shootout returning to Carmel and Westfield, but that's the following week. So, but plenty coming up, man. And it goes all the way through the end of July as we get through June. The Battle of the Brands is the 1st of July up in Indianapolis. And then you've got Prep Hoops Grit Region Finals in Indianapolis in mid-July, and then it just goes big time. Then it goes Chicago, Atlanta, and North Augusta, South Carolina, with the Under Armour Finals. July 20th, that same weekend, Adidas Gauntlet is going on in Atlanta, and the Peach Jam is happening starting a few days before that, but going through the 24th in North Augusta. So lots of action coming up, man. Lots of basketball that's going on, but Indiana's recruiting. They're doing, I talked earlier about that kind of discrepancy of out of state versus in state. Their future recruiting is a lot about in state. I mean, we're looking at Xavier Booker, Trent Sisley, Harrelson, all Catchings, all those guys that are in the 24 or 5 classes. They're doing it. Indiana is doing a great job, I think, recruiting the state for the future.
Yeah, and it's it's cyclical. The talent is cyclical, right, in the state. But Xavier Booker is certainly an interesting guy, and that's going to be someone that maybe worth keeping an eye on to see if Indiana can get back in the mix and get them to commit.
Well, I mean, there's all kinds of offers out there. Indiana, in this class alone, or for next year, while there are multiple offers out, there are certain aspects that that they are edging towards. Let's see, Asa Powell. He was the kid on the visit yesterday. Asa Newell, rather. But he's a big dude, man. 6'9" from Fort Walton Beach, Florida. But he was in for a visit yesterday. He's originally from Fort Walton Beach, but he is transferring to Montverde Academy. So you've got him in for a visit yesterday. They're recruiting KJ Evans and Derek Queen. You've already got 2 of their teammates on. That is just, there's no guarantees there, but that's big. I talked yesterday about starting a little pipeline, and they're beginning a little pipeline there with Montverde Academy.
Yeah, and I lived in Fort Walton Beach for a year back in 1999. Very nice, very pretty area down there. A lot of beaches, Destin, and that's a good basketball area. I remember watching back in the day a kid named Kelly Wise, who he ended up going to Memphis. He was a pretty good player, and I think he had a
maybe it was Memphis.
The NBA as well. That's true. Maybe it was. Yeah, and Choctawhatchee High School, which was right across the. It was very easy because it was right across from the newspaper office there on Racetrack Road in beautiful Fort Walton Beach, Florida. You've got Eglin Air Force Base out there, and it's a pretty area there. That Northwest Florida Daily News, which is where I worked for 10 months back in the summer '99.
All 10 of them, all 10 months. Well, you've got that. And so I think Indiana is really making a concerted effort to now bring that recruiting into the mix that they need of in-state and out-of-state talent. But it comes down to just getting the best. They're going to get the best players they can get. And sometimes it doesn't work out timing wise. Sometimes it doesn't work out scholarship wise for what you have and what you need. So there's just a lot of ins and outs about it, man. A lot of facets, as the dude would say.
That's what you were. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about Big Lebowski. Yeah, a lot of ins, a lot of outs, a lot of
ins, a lot of outs, a lot of facets, man. Absolutely, but yeah, it's becoming even funner. Now you throw in NIL, and what has that done to? Yeah, we know. So it's not. That's just a rhetorical question, but so there you go. That's where they are in recruiting. You've got the big man coming in tomorrow to Indiana, as they still are on that recruiting trail. What's coming up for you this week?
Yeah, I was talking to John earlier. I got a story on CJ Gunn coming out tomorrow, and a little bit about his development in his shooting. Like I talked to one of his development coaches a little bit about what they did to hone his shot, because Jim, every time I see him, his shot gets better and better. He is really, you can tell he's put in the work, and he alluded to the scoring ability also, and particularly his perimeter game. His, he had that 22-footer in that game where he just kind of, step back and let it fly. And, it was almost like one of those Steph Curry shots. And, I was like, well, how did it feel to sink that after the game? And he said, I knew it was going in from the moment I released it. So he's got a lot of confidence right now in his perimeter game. And, how that translates will be interesting to see in terms of, that's concerned. And, we've also got a NIL series coming up at the end of the month that I'm excited about. Elton Hayes from Pennsylvania, and I are going to be that as well.
Sir Elton Hayes.
Yes. So we're working on that and efforting that. Also a Title IX special page that's going to be coming out next week. June 23rd, the 50th anniversary of Title IX, which is obviously a landmark. And in talking to some sources, feel like there's still a long way to go with Title IX in terms of compliance and lack of compliance, and schools really taking it to heart, equal opportunities for men and women in athletics.
Did you know Bloomington South High School has a golfer named Happy Gilmore?
I did not.
Yeah. Been going by Happy Gilmore since they were 6.
But what's interesting too is the Indiana Pacers hired a scout named Happy Walters, who was a.
That's not as good as that. That's not as good as a golfer named Happy Gilmore.
But here's the backstory to that, right? Happy Walters is an agent. He was a former basketball agent and also a former entertainment agent, and who is one of his clients, Adam Sandler. So Adam Sandler came up with the idea from Happy Gilmore from Happy Walters, apparently. That's the story.
Wow. Well, that's
from his name. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's from Fort Wayne too. Happy Walters is from Fort Wayne. And now he's working for the Pacers.
That's funny.
Yeah.
How about
6 degrees of separation there?
How about Happy Kuykendall? You remember who that was?
No.
I don't know why they gave him such a weird ass name. That was dumb.
Yeah.
But that was Happy from Blue Chips.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that was the guy, the agent, who says that
JT Walsh. No, he wasn't an agent. He was just a
booster. Yeah,
booster. Yeah,
he was a booster that said something was better when you're winning. Remember that line?
It's funny stuff. But yeah, happy, a lot of happies.
I don't know if we could say that on the air, but he said something is always better when you're winning, and you can guess what the something is.
Yeah, of course. 9. We got to take a break, but when we come back, big shakeup in Indianapolis radio. Did you see that? MS Communication being sold off. When includes a lot of the big time stations up there. We'll talk about that and lots more. Brought to you by our good friends from the Courtroom down in Bedford. Courtroom Sports Grill prides itself on providing their guests with fresh, innovative dishes designed to please your palate and your wallet. Every item on their menu is made from scratch using only the freshest ingredients. All a part of the WOW Club. Make sure you sign up at your Apple App Store or Google Play Store for the WOW Club. Do that and more. We'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting...
Do you know if Chronic will be joining us today or not?
I don't. I mean, he would normally be. I don't know why he wouldn't be.
Okay.
I know that Mike wasn't going to be here because I called him for my NIL stuff last week, and he told me he was going on vacation. So.
Yeah.
I was lucky I got him the day before. I was lucky I got him the day before he went on vacation.
Jim, did you see my text about what to do with Sharon Wilkerson this week?
I did not.
So that was a scheduled text this morning. That's why I was confused on why you weren't here early, because I thought you texted me, but it was just a scheduled text, wasn't it?
Yeah. I'll look at that.
Okay. And are we doing Mitchell Page every Friday now? I remember you said something about that.
Yeah.
Ago.
Yeah. He didn't make it on last week, but yes. What's new with K-Bro?
We can talk about the Indiana odds, right? 33-1 to win the national championship.
Yeah, that's
66-1. Yeah,
that's what, 12th best,
something like that.
You want to know what they say 12th best is, right?
Yep.
What?
11th loser.
11th loser. You're a loser.
And that doesn't even qualify you for the Elite Eight. That still keeps you in Tom Crean levels of Sweet 16.
Did you watch the NBA Finals last night, Jim? Or no?
10 seconds.
Oh no, I forgot who won that game.
Golden State. We can talk a little bit.
It's at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Tuesday. Jim Coyle with you as always. K-Bro, Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers as well. Joining me, brought to you by our good friends from Andy Moore Honda. If you're in the market for a vehicle, you know where to go. Andy Moore has it all. Let's see. Indiana, 33-1 odds to win the national championship, Kevin. Gosh, I hate to start that because, man, oh, man, people go nuts. I think that's 12th best, something like that. One of the teams to one of the favorites to potentially win the Big Ten championship. A lot of a completely different conversation we're having than a year ago, first of all. And just being able to have that conversation is much more fun. I caution the fans to not go over the edge, but I understand when you've been starving for something and you start dropping food, man, people are just going to start grabbing.
Yeah. You put down $100, maybe you win 3,300. You never know, right? Wouldn't be a bad payday, but is this a national championship team? Well, you never really know at this point in the year, but might be a worthwhile take a worthwhile shot on it. But they were 66-1 before Trey Jackson Davis announced that he was coming back. So the odds doubled with regards to that, and it's going to be it'll be fascinating to see if what kind of season they're going to have. You've got some big expectations, and certainly we had Indiana had big expectations in football the year before, and it didn't pan out. So, but football is certainly more of an injury sport than basketball. So, you just got to keep your fingers crossed that basketball-wise they stay healthy and that Trace Jackson Davis has the kind of season that I think everyone expects him to have in terms of being that productive guy and one of the best players in the country.
Absolutely. This team is given good reason with the talent that they have amassed, other than that it's shooting, but someone may step up. We don't know. Looking forward to seeing how that comes about. More and looking forward to the games, man. Arizona, Kansas, there's going to be others. I promise you, the ACC Big Ten Challenge, they're going to make that a good one. So it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be a challenging season for Indiana too, though. They're going to have a lot of opportunities, and I don't expect them to conquer them all, but you've got to come out to where you've battled and you've competed, and they've got to win. I think they have to go 500 in that group of 4 games. And if they can do that, that's a win to me, because that shows that they have really, really come a long, long way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think you kind of like being battle tested. There's something to be said for that in the non-conference schedule, having that, because that way when you step into the conference, it makes that transition a little easier. If you remember last year, certainly, and you had you had the 2 games in December with Wisconsin, the game that, you look back on, they probably should have won. I mean, they're up 22 points. You had the Nebraska game where you won pretty easy going away in your first Big Ten game in December. But then stepping into January and playing all those non-conference games where you had a softer schedule, and then you go to Penn State and you lose at Penn State, which was pretty disappointing as well. But it's getting used to that step up in competition and conference play week in and week out, and you've got to do that. Certainly, it makes that transition easier if you play a tough schedule.
Speaking of tough schedule, Rick Bozich had a tweet that, and Rick will be on with us tomorrow, but that Louisville's coach Kenny Payne said that Mike Woodson and Penny Hardaway, which that's funny, I didn't know he still had a job. Penny Hardaway and Mike Woodson have both called to schedule a game for next season. Payne says he told them both that he wanted to wait a few years.
Yes, yeah. I thought he mentioned that at Huber's, what he did. Remember when Rick asked him about that, and that that they were going to wait a couple of years until Kenny Payne got that Louisville team up and running. But that would be good. It would, if you can't do Indiana, Kentucky, I would say Indiana Louisville is the next best thing, right? It's a kind of a border rivalry and across the river, and you would have, it would be fun to play a game in the Yum Center. I've never been there. I've been to Freedom Hall back in 2003 when when Florida played Louisville.
Freedom Hall is for as old as it is. It's a good place to watch something. I saw Van Halen there in 1984, and lots of other concerts. But the Yum Center is built for basketball, man. It's an NBA type arena. The only thing is I hate the exits. But other than that, I've seen a lot of concerts there. But it's been used a lot. I mean, the NCAA has been there multiple occasions.
They're going to be there again this year coming up. Actually, it's going to be the South region. It's going to be the Sweet 16 Elite 8 site. So, fingers crossed, hopefully if you're Indiana and you can get in that region, that'd be a nice little home crowd there. If you could play in Louisville, if you can make it to that point, you'd be shooting for that South region again. That's what, everyone says, the regular season's not important in college basketball, but man, if you can have a good regular season, get a top 4 seed, get a geographically desirable where you could play, if you're a team like Indiana and you could play in Columbus and Louisville, not have to get on a plane. You remember last year what happened when they barely squeaked in? They go from Dayton and fly across the country to Portland.
That was ridiculous.
That's how the NCAA does it, is that you penalize the teams that just get in as opposed to, you have to have the good regular season to have the favorable travel. And that's just the way it works. I mean, that's, it's merit based. So that's why it's important for Indiana to have a good regular season and create an opportunity where if you're playing in Columbus and Louisville, man, the number of Indiana fans that'll be there and how that works to your advantage, I think is, I remember back in the day covering Florida, and they had some kind of string where they were like 11-1 when they played NCAA tournament games in their home state, be it Tampa or Orlando, and they would set themselves up to do that by being a top 4 seed, and that's how you do it. So that should be the goal for Indiana this season, is to have the kind of regular season where you're a top 4 seed and you have a geographically desirable path in the NCAA tournament. Makes it a lot easier.
Yes, it does. I'm just sitting here reading about the sunken ship that was treasure found off of Columbia. I'll have to read about that later. Very pretty cool thing. What else is coming up in this summer? This is the time where it slows down a little bit. You still got baseball going on in the high school ranks. You've got the
College World Series. How about
College World
Fighting Irish?
College World Series. Get ready to say you had the women's, their deal, I think, is over. Now you've got College World Series, and then maybe a little break, and then we have Little League World Series, which is always a summer favorite.
And you saw the NBA
College World Series,
of course, But
talked a little bit about that. The College World Series yesterday, or Notre Dame particularly, being a team from so far north, having that success. What a rarity that is.
Yeah, and they beat Tennessee, who was the number 1 overall national seed. All those Tennessee fans went home disappointed. The Vol fans there in at their stadium. That was a really big upset for Notre Dame, and credit to their program. And I've covered 4 College World Series in Omaha, covering the Gators. And some of those teams had guys that are big leaguers now: Zunino, Jonathan India, Pete Alonso. It's a great experience. It's so much fun out there in Omaha for those 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's something I've been to Omaha, but I've never been to the College World Series.
It's an unbelievable event, and they just really rally around it. Omaha does a great job hosting it. And Omaha is one of those really underrated Midwestern cities. I mean, I really liked it every time I traveled there. The Garden District, a lot of shops and restaurants, a lot of things to do. It is really a pretty town, and good place to be in the summer for sure.
Yeah, it is a fun little spot. Hopefully one day we'll have a reason to go there. That would.
You ever see the movie Election? Reese Witherspoon. That was shot in Omaha, and also About Schmidt, Beck Nicholson. Warren Schmidt. My name is Warren Schmidt.
Both
those movies were shot in Omaha.
Why in Omaha?
Because the director was from there, and he thought it would be a good backdrop for a movie. And the character in About Schmidt, Warren Schmidt, was supposed to be patterned after Warren Buffett, apparently. Like he was this old insurance guy, hitting retirement and coming to terms with his retirement and so forth. And it was we would call it. It was a Kathy Bates was in it. That was a pretty funny movie.
Let's see. We're gonna I don't know if we'll wait to talk about this, but you've already talked about CJ. But we'll talk about a little bit about what did you see from his weekend, or I guess Saturday at least.
I saw an improved shooting. Really, I mean, I think that's the main thing. Like a lot more confidence in his ability to fire away and make shots and be a scorer at all three levels, and some defense too, which I think has always been there with him too, his athletic ability. And it's interesting. Like if you look at the roster, he's 6'6" now, which is interesting because he was 6'4", 6'5", so it looks like he's even growing a little bit. So that's I think that's another interesting aspect too, and he'll compete for those wing spots. That's going to be interesting in the fall going into the spring, and he's not backing down from that competition apparently.
Earlier we talked about Indiana being a 33-1 shot to win the national championship. Apparently Michigan is also. So there you go. So there's your two. Michigan, I don't really know other than Hunter Dickinson what they're going to have. We'll see about them. And Tony V mentioning, we just said the College World Series coming up soon after these super regionals. Looking forward to that. That's always a fun time and always a great discussion. As John, the producer, is back, he says, "Don't get too excited," but Nickelback's going to be releasing a new album this summer. So
I did see a teaser about that yesterday. I'm not going to lie.
Of course you did. And this got brought up while you were gone. I forget what happened. What was so
right before I left, if you remember, I did that poll.
No, I understand that, but something fans. No, I understand, but something came up while you were gone.
Okay.
And I forget what it was, but there's that. So
Chronic's here if you want a break, by the way.
Yes, let's take a break. Coming up next, the great Chronic Hoosier joins us here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio, brought to you by your good friends from the Wild Club. Make sure you go to the Apple App Store, Google Play Store, sign up. It's easy. It's free. It does nothing but give you benefits. And then you can use that, whether it's at Southern Stone, Courtroom Sports Grill, Feast Market, Cabello, BB's Marketplace, and much, much more. Back right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Whether you're visiting...
What's up, peoples?
Hey, I am so sorry I'm late jumping in here. I just got done doing a deal. It was Nickelback was the walk-up song for every Angels player before Joe Madden got fired.
That was the teaser.
That's what it was.
Talking about.
The whole team had Nickelback for a walk-up, and then the poor son of a bitch went off and shaved a mohawk and got fired before the team ever saw it.
No, they lost. Nickelback used that as a way to tease that they were releasing new music this summer, which is hilarious.
And the Angels lost the game 1-0 to the Red Sox.
That's the synergy 2022 needs.
That's the best.
Remember, if today was my last day, I would not be listening to Nickelback.
Oh my God! Oh man, what's new with you, Chronic?
Oh, just another day in paradise. Trying to push through the week here before we head out on vacation Saturday.
That sounds lovely.
Yes, I am looking forward to it. It's been way, way too long in between here for us.
Heading south?
Sunny Florida, going back to Cape San Blas.
Cape San Blas.
Right now.
Number one beach in America, and unfortunately people found out about that shit.
Where is it?
It's an hour east of Panama City.
Yeah.
So we started going there a couple of years back.
Down on the Panhandle.
Yes, but it's what they call the Forgotten Coast. So it's 10 miles away from Mexico Beach, where Hurricane Michael just destroyed everything.
Yeah, Michael, I remember that in 2018. Yeah.
That's what got us there, though, is, in early 20, everything was just fire sale prices and everything was brand spanking new. And it's the exact same type of beach, that white, powdery, powdered sugar like sand. But it's just a 20-mile cape that goes out into the Gulf and dead ends. And it's, row a house on one side of the road, row a house on the other, and beaches immediately adjacent on both sides. So real secluded, really cool, but really getting expensive quick. Houses that we stayed at, we were renting for $4,000 for the week are going for 10 now. A house we thought about buying at 720 is just sold for 1.8. It's ridiculous, but we got a beach, we got a pool, we got a hot tub. We got my brothers and my nieces and nephews. I'm looking forward to it.
Got a pool, got a pond. Pond would be good for you.
Yeah, ocean's good for my crew.
All right, here we go, Jim. 30 seconds.
Hey, this is John, the producer with Indiana Sports Beat Radio. We're now a part of the Rivals Network. The Hoosier.com is where you can find complete coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and plenty more. Simply go to thehoosier.com and sign up. It's free. You can also find full episodes of Indiana Sports Beat Radio on the homepage or on the station every week, Monday through Friday. If we're not on a station where you live, we should be. Ask for Indiana Sports Beat Radio. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Endeavor Hospitality Group and Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Welcome back. It is Tuesday here at Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Kevin Brockway, K-Bro from CNHI Papers with us as always, and we're joined by Chronic Hoosier as he joins us each week. And before I forget, big thanks to Chronic. He is a whole sponsor for the Never Lose Hoop golf outing of Jordan Hulls. You can be too. Just if you can't play or participate, donate $100 or more, and you could be a whole sponsor. You get a whole sign there. Jordan Hulls and the gang will take their picture around it, send it to you, post it. Yeah, you can participate if you can't play. Now, if you can play, you're going to play. Otherwise, you'll miss out on an incredible day of fun with former IU players, coaches, football coaches, everybody. Everybody's going to be there. So big thanks to Chronic. Thanks for the whole sponsorship, Chronic Hoosier.
Hey, I am always happy to support what a great cause Jordy and his family have going on there. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be available. I'm going to be on vacation out of state next week when this is going down. We got the bright idea to go to Florida during the hottest sun week of the year. But I will say it's an automatic retweet from me for anybody who's out at the outing. Take a picture next to my sign, shout me out, and I'm going to RT that shit. I'll smash it.
We're going to kill it, baby, we think. And you can do that too. So people, if you're just listening, you can help participate. Like I said, I'd love to see as many people we can. Just be a host sponsor, man. $100. You can just go to that link that we'll put up later. But what's new with you, man? Besides you, before you get out of Dodge, I had a visit Indiana visit yesterday from Mesa Powell, Mesa Powell, I think it was, or Newell. But more importantly, tomorrow they're getting a visit as well, KJ Evans. But the recruiting for Indiana, I just laugh at what we're talking about, the conversations we're having today, as opposed to 1 year ago and much less 2 years ago. It is a 180-degree difference, not only of recruiting, of the looking ahead. We just talked before you joined us. Indiana has 33-1 to win a national championship, which is like 12th best. One of the teams prognosticated to be a conference favorite. All that stuff has been a faraway dream for like 6 years.
Yeah, it's amazing what a difference a year makes when it comes to the recruiting front. And I know a lot of people that were really disappointed with the way the season kind of wound down before tournament play started. But I keep circling back. I don't think you can overstate just how important it was for Indiana to get their stuff together and have a strong showing at the Big Ten tournament, played their way into the NCAA tournament, got out to Portland, and at least finished on a high note. But the momentum that allowed them to carry into the offseason, I think was absolutely just critical for both putting next year's class together, with the commits that happened after that, as well as setting the table for the following season. And as we've mentioned, all that is all well and good until the next season starts, and then they start laying that tape down. But honestly, it's probably the best case scenario, considering where this team stood going into the end of February to where they are right now, and what that's enabled. And keep in mind, there's been some staff changes there. The new recruiting coordinator, this guy named Jordan something or another, he's finally back on the job. I think he's back in country as of yesterday. He and the family just flew back from Germany to take over the reins at Cook Hall as the recruiting coordinator. Couldn't come home at a better time, because it's a huge week for Indiana on the recruiting front. And my guess is we'll continue to see a ton of action throughout the summer. Success breeds success, and bringing on top level players just attracts more top level players to your program. So it's going to be a really fascinating off season to see what movement, if any, happens on the recruiting front for the 23 class and beyond. But it certainly looks like it's off to a roaring start so far.
Absolutely. Kevin, how important is having the number 5 class in the perception of other recruits going forward?
Yeah, I think it's really big. I think it tells people that Indiana is back as a national program, as a national player in the recruiting ranks. And as we discussed before, you create that pipeline with Montverde Academy. That certainly helps in terms of getting guys. Now, UC Rosemond, as we know, has some really good connections throughout the Southeast. Caleb Banks is a guy we don't talk about a lot, but top 100 national recruit, and a guy at 6'8" that apparently has some range out to the 3-point line. So he's going to be another interesting guy coming in. And you hope that you can hit on some impact guys potentially, or some guys that can come in and contribute and be in the rotation early in the season, and that just makes your team that much deeper.
Yeah, and one of the guys we're talking about, Justin, puts up that he heard Indiana getting an unofficial visit from Xavier Booker tomorrow, which is absolutely true. That right there is a recruitment that had been seemingly going in a different direction, but now may not be going in an opposite direction, but at least being pulled back a little bit to a manageable situation, if that makes sense. As far as landing him, Chronic, Xavier is one of those guys that Michigan State had been long thought to be the leader for his services, but that's gotten a little quieter, it seems.
It's always a trip trying to read the tea leaves on how this is going. And I think one thing that I learned, particularly after IU's experience with the movement, back in 2011, going into 2012, taking so much of the recruiting news with a grain of salt, recognizing that, the guys asking these questions often are affiliated with team pages, and the bias that some of those, that news gets filtered through can always be a little tricky to ascertain, especially when you're talking about teenagers, man. We've all been there. We all recognize, sometimes their intentions, their moods, their likes and dislikes can change with the wind. So, and, oftentimes these guys are being coached, they're being schooled on, how to respond to media, what to say. Most of them know better than to burn bridges and, air out anything that might be negatively interpreted. But, actions speak a whole lot louder than words. And when you see visits taking place, for me, at least personally, that gives you a lot more confirmation or validation of interest between the parties. And, it shows that they're progressing in the process of the recruitment. And that's usually the goal for most coaching staffs, is get the kids on campus, get them on campus, make your pitch, let them get a sense for how they would fit the program, how it feels, and see if you can play from there. So whenever you see the program landing these visits, I think it's pretty safe to assume that, the process is progressing nicely. And that's about the best you can hope to see. As I always say to my friends, just take what you read with a grain of salt, and believe what your eyes tell you when you see the kids step foot on campus. And, that's the goal right now. And they seem to be achieving that, at least as far as getting those discussions into the next step, into the next phase, getting the kids down to Bloomington and letting them see, because for all the hubbub that goes into the dynamics of the recruitment, especially when it's summertime, man, Bloomington sells itself as well as any campus in the nation, and you love to see the kids get down here and experience that for themselves, and that's when they can really take ownership of that decision and see themselves at this particular school.
Kevin, the biggest thing I've seen in the last 2 years is that Indiana had stopped being a destination place for guys outside of the state. It was still a destination for if you're inside the state because it's still Indiana, but if you were outside, it wasn't that destination. Now it's becoming that national destination again. Of course, they haven't won anything yet, and you have to start winning. But I think that those people out there, they know the history, they know what is available, they know the state, what's in there, and you've got Mike Woodson. So you've got a lot of different variables that are completely different that are all going into this all these ingredients into this pot, and it's creating a very, very nice stew.
Yeah, and it's a national program, it's a national brand, and we saw that when they brought in guys like Victor Oladipo from the Washington D.C. area, right? You can go back to that. You can go back to even the Bob Knight days. He used to get kids from Chicago and kids from throughout the country as well. As kids from, and certainly I think Tom Crean certainly did a good job as well in terms of getting of that mix. And, but you still got kids like Cody Zeller. Now you're in a situation with Mike Woodson where, you take a look at this incoming class. You've got, one kid from Montverde who actually was originally from Florida, Miami, Florida, and Renault. You've got a kid from Montverde who's originally from Pittsburgh in Hood Schifino. You've got Caleb Banks from Georgia, and you have the in-state kid, CJ Gunn. And I think that's a pretty good mix.
Absolutely. Chronic, buddy, I appreciate you. I know it's been a busy one. You got ready to head off to vacation. That cannot be a better thought to know you're getting ready to do that. So you and the kiddos, I hope you have a great time.
We are looking forward to it, man. It's been a long time. This is probably the biggest gap we've had between breaks here in a long time. So important to go recharge the battery, spend some family time, just get away from things for a bit, and come back and get ready for the I guess basically we got a month left before stuff starts picking back up again. July is pretty much the last month of summer in this town, with the community schools starting up. All the athletes get back for fall camp shortly thereafter. So as much as it feels like summer's still in its infancy, it's slipping through our fingers very rapidly by the day. So trying to make the most of it while we got it. But we're going to go out of state for a little bit and enjoy some of that Gulf sunshine and eat a lot of seafood. And hopefully just nothing but positive news on the recruiting front. Not much else from Indiana, because this is the time you just want everybody keeping their head down, doing the work in the weight room, getting some chemistry together, and building the team that hopefully is going to compete. And that's for football and basketball right now. I believe everybody's back in town right now, seeing a lot of the kids out and about, grabbing dinner and whatnot. So this is the time when success is born, to be quite honest. So hopefully no news is good news. And look forward to catching you guys the week after next when I get back.
Looking forward to it, brother. You have a great one, safe and fun time.
Hey, have fun at the golf outing. Send me lots of pics.
We'll do it. Chronic Hoosier joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat before he heads off to vacation. Appreciate him very much. John, I don't know if we need to hit a break or not. I'm going to guess
we're good.
That. No, okay. Just wanted to make sure. Perfect. The U.S. Open starts this week. Okay, bro. Speaking of you got the U.S. Open and Live going on. So the U.S. Open, are any of the Live players going to be playing in the Live?
I mean, in the U.S. Open, there's a lot of controversy surrounding that and surrounding their feature in PGA events as well.
Well, I know, but this is not so. I wonder. I'm just curious. Are any of those guys play? Because this is not a PGA event per se. So it's open to the world. Even Happy Gilmore can play in this, or Shooter McGavin. Shooter McGavin could play in this, or Tim Cup.
Well, there was a video of a 56 or 57-year-old guy who qualified, which is pretty cool. trying to remember his name, but it's kind of neat how you can have those stories of people that qualify, and they're always kind of miracle stories. But it should be the U.S. Open should be interesting this week. Should be fascinating.
Tony V said he sponsored a hole when a local bank had a charity golf outing, and he was dating the bank president's daughter. He got really upset. Well, Tony, you can still sponsor a hole here without having to date anybody, though. So just sponsor a hole on the Jordan Holes outing, man. It's easy. What is that? John, put that link up for me. I know it's on here somewhere. While I'm trying to find out if here we go. Oh, wow. Louis Oosthuizen is a LIVer. Taylor Gooch, Kevin Na, Sergio Garcia, Dustin Johnson, and I think Phil Mickelson are all in the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
How interesting is that going to be amongst the players, I wonder?
Could be fascinating. Yeah, Mickelson is playing, and Mickelson won the PGA last year, right? At 51? At 50?
50, oldest ever.
Oldest ever to win the PGA Championship. So we'll see if he has a shot here. It's the Brookline. That's where they're playing this year, and should be a good test. As we know, U.S. Opens often are. They always they're
crazy. Oh my God! They there was a green. I think it was last year. They said there was a green that the putt basically was like watching you flush the toilet. You know how it goes in a circle, in that circle. It was an unbelievable, almost a 360-degree circular that it had to make. So, yeah, they set the U.S. Opens are set up to be extraordinarily tough. But I'm just curious what it's going to be like for the players out there. What are they going to be asked? It's going to be interesting.
But, Jim, there's hope for you if people in their 50s are playing. Maybe you can qualify for the U.S. Open someday. Get out working at Eagle Creek and dedicate yourself.
Someday when I reach that stature, yes. But no, I don't think there's any hope for anything to do with me and golf. My game will never improve. It is what it is. But that's okay. But, yeah. Hey, don't forget, make sure you sign up for the WOW Club. They are our biggest sponsor. But more importantly, they're an IU athletic sponsor. Support those who support you, that help us bring you this content, that help us bring you the coverage. And that's how we do that. Go to your Apple App Store or Google Play Store and join the WOW Club. It doesn't cost anything, but we're going to get some specials lined up for you from like BB's Market this summer. Get some grilling going, man. Have some fun. You're going to miss out Friday. Mitchell Page is going to be here with us, and we're just gonna have some fun. I got talking to him about some off non-sports stuff, and he was all in it. And if you know Mitchell, man, he gets on something. He doesn't let go. But that'll be fun. What do you have coming up next?
Yeah, CJ got a story for tomorrow. We have obviously the NIL series Title IX page will be on June 23rd, 50th anniversary of the passing of the legislation, which, you take a look at sports today, like women's soccer, women's basketball, in particular, a lot of the team sports, that without the evolution without the passage of Title IX, the evolution of women's sports in the last 50 years, you wouldn't have to where it is today. That being said, there's a feeling that there's a lot more room to grow in that arena, and it's certainly interesting, even with NIL, in women's sports, you've got some opportunities, I think, for growth. And we've seen it even in the conference networks, right? The last 10 years, them providing more platforms for programming on, places like the Big Ten Network and the SEC Network, and people are getting interested.
Getting interested, baby. Getting interested. Sounds like Costanza. But yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a hot week, man. Not a lot you want to do outside. It's going to be
careful. Yeah. Be careful. Hydrate,
Well, and it's the first really hot week that hot week that we've had this year. So there's that. Yeah. Where's at least hopefully it's not going to be this hot for the U.S. Open.
Yeah. It's going to be in Brookline, Massachusetts.
So
Yeah, I'm actually going to be at a conference in Indy this weekend, so I'll be up there, hopefully in some nice air-conditioned rooms. We'll see.
What kind of conference are you going to be at?
Could be at a writing conference, but also at APSC. It's a sports writers throughout the country. But what's also interesting is that Greg Sankey and Julie Cromer, the AD from Ohio U, and they'll be talking a lot about NIL issues, which will be fascinating and interesting to see. A lot of people think that this AD at Ohio U is going to be the one that's going to replace Mark Emmert as the NCAA commissioner, and she has a lot of ideas to kind of move the association and college sports forward. So it'll be interesting, very, very interesting to see what she has to hear.
Well, it'd be very interesting to see what they can actually do, because that's been a problem, is what they can actually do. And as far as stopping, I mean, the toothpaste is out, and you'd have to change legislation. You don't have.
Well, I don't think they want to stop it. I don't think.
Right. But
I think they want to recreate the framework.
Right. I get that, but there's still a lot of they'll have to. There's just so much that they'll have to go into to change all that. But man, that's a discussion that we could do all day long. But I want to make sure to thank everybody. Of course, John, the producer. Glad to have him back. Chronic Hoosier, of course, and K-Bro, Kevin and Brockway. Mike DeCourcy will return next week. We're back tomorrow with Bob Kravitz, Kyle Nedrip, Rick Bozich. And you got a visit coming in to IU basketball tomorrow. So all kinds of coming up. Big thanks. Until tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. I will see you on the radio.
Thanks for listening to Indiana Sports Beat Radio. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page for more clips and team coverage of Indiana basketball, football, and more. You can also find full episodes and tons of other content on thehoosier.com. We'll see you next time for another edition of Indiana Sports Beat Radio.